Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast. We're headed into our final segment of the day, and I wanted to talk about the professional debut of Caitlin Clark. Of course, she was a superstar at the college level, but her WNBA career has officially begun as she and the Indiana Fever played their first regular season game of the year. And it definitely didn't go quite as well as they were hoping for. They end up losing this game 92-71. And Clark herself, because we're just going to sort of mostly be focusing in on her performance, I thought that it was all right. She obviously scored a team-high 20 points, tied for the most in the game as a whole, but there was definitely bumps and hiccups along the way for her where she missed her first handful of shots, and it wasn't for the lack of getting good looks. I thought that she had some nice opportunities to score. It just wasn't necessarily, her shot just wasn't there, and I feel like, of course, nerves had to have played a role in it. Our boss here at the GSMC Sports Network, Andrew Tate, he sort of made this comparison during a production meeting that Victor Wembanyama, when he first made his debut specifically when I remember Wemby looking, definitely a little bit shaken, was during his first G League game where he was facing off against, believe it was the game, I'm totally blanking right now, I think it was against the Hornets with Brandon Miller. It could have also been the Czech game, but not 100% sure, but he struggled from the field, which just flat out, and looked like conditioning, the physicality of it caught him off guard a little bit. Feel like for Clark that was a little bit of a similar thing, where on her first couple shots, she got a look at a layup in transition. She had a floater in the lane that just didn't go. She got herself an open three-point look playing off of the ball, gave a pump fake to get the defender to fly by and just couldn't hit the shot. And she looked very mad at herself in these instances, and it was clear that the emotions were running high from her. Now, she started to settle into the game, at least from a scoring perspective, a little more as it went on. Specifically, the three-point shot started to fall for her. It still wasn't great efficiency on the night as a whole. She was 4 of 11 from 3, 5 of 15 from the field entirely. So, she got the scoring output, which was at least, solid for her to... Again, it's a balance of ultimately the reputation of everybody doesn't care. It doesn't mean anything, and Caitlin Clark, to as much as she can possibly ignore it, should do it. And it's also important to remember that the women's basketball schedule, especially making the jump from college to the WNBA, it is so condensed where it's just one thing after another. Training camps just started and they're now already playing regular season games. So it has been quite the calendar year for Clark, and I feel like, again, at least from some aspects of the game last night, seeing her get more comfortable as it went on is probably what we're going to see in the long term in terms of her being able to, because there's no doubt that she is an incredible talent, but it's going to take her a bit, I think, before she is able to be the star that she was at the college level. And you know what? Some of the, older players, Cheryl Swoops, I know, has faced a lot of backlash for some of the comments that she's made on Caitlin Clark. There are a bunch of other, former WNBA players as well that said it's not going to be easy for Clark when she makes the jump to the next level. And I think that last night was a little bit of a wake-up call for Caitlin Clark herself and all of the people who thought that she was going to come into the league right away and be, the go-to scorer and the best player in the league. Thought that she had a little bit of a welcome to the league moment where she drove in and she took a very hard foul going up for a layup attempt, sort of, was sprawled out on the ground for a minute there, got up, shot her free throws, she was totally fine, but a very hard collision for her there, and it is, it's going to take an adjustment period, but the reason why this debut does have a little bit of, and again, I thought that she was fine ultimately, but the criticism really stems from the fact that she had 10 turnovers in this game, the most ever in a WNBA debut in the history of the league. Now, it's a tough number that it is very hard to sort of, get out of, and I thought that you have to understand that she is the main guard of this team, that she does have a lot of expectations from day one. It seemed like she was trying to, push the pace a little bit, it seemed like at times, and it just wasn't necessarily pretty. She made a couple really tough passes, and when I say tough passes, I mean bad passes. The decisions weren't great, and some of her passes were just a little bit off from an accuracy perspective, but it's, she's carrying a very large expectation and role headed into her WNBA career. And a lot of people, I understand for, from the network perspectives, you want to highlight as much good as you possibly can for Caitlin Clark. And I think that it's good for the sport as a whole to do so. So I don't disagree with that. But I think that some of the criticisms around Clark are being babied a little bit, because we do understand that it's never easy to make the jump to the next level, and that is something that absolutely has to be considered. But it's not like she's in this totally unique situation where nobody else has ever had to make some type of a debut. It is okay to admit that last night was not a great start for her NBA or WNBA career. And the team ends up losing by 21 points, actually, to be exact. But, I think that everything is going to work itself out with Clark. I have no doubt that she can ascend to being the face of the league and, one of, if not the best player in the league. But it's going to take time. Again, with the very rapid-fire off-season schedule of making the jump from the college basketball game to the pros, it is all just sort of operating at super speed, and she's going to get there. I do have the utmost confidence in her, but I think that it's also okay to sort of acknowledge that there are going to be bumps along the road, and she showed some of the the highs of her game in the 3-point shooting once she started feeling it for herself. There were also lows, and she would probably be the first to tell you that she was not walking into this situation expecting to be a flawless player. So, and I mentioned this when I talked earlier in the production meeting that we had here, where I do think that the fact that criticism is coming for her is a positive sign for the WNBA as a whole, because it comes because people actually care about her and growing into care about the league as a whole. So it's all right. It's almost a good thing to, I think to some degree, that there were other players better than her on the court, because it can show the sort of casual audience that there are some really good players in this league. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm any sort of an expert on the WNBA, because it's something newer to me as well. But it was that player Carrington, Dejanay Carrington, I believe her name is. She was kind of strapping up Caitlin Clark, and there's just a lot more talent than I think in the WNBA than I think a lot of people give credit to. So ultimately here, Clark, final stat line, if we want to look at it as a whole, it was 20 points, 5 of 15 from the field, 4 of 11 from 3 assists, 2 steals, and again, those 10 turnovers are a tough look, but she'll bounce back. And as for the Fever, their next game is on Thursday, where they're going to face up against the Liberty. So should be a fun one there. Of course, one of the other biggest stars in the WNBA as well, with Sabrina Ionescu. So should be a fun watch there. But that is all we have for today. So thank you very much for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. remember to like, follow, subscribe wherever you keep up with us. Check us out on social media as well for more exclusive short content. But as for now, that is all we have for today, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.